Here, let's start with Mel Kiper Jr. That's who we're going to first go down through. We're going to go through the good, the bad, and the most disagreed with, a.k.a. the ugly. Starting with the good, and here's a great example. The top 10 players, I put this on there. They're in a different order than PFF's latest big board, but I do agree with the top 10 overall players on Mel Kiper Jr.'s big board. To walk through those right now, he's got Chase Young at number 1 of Ohio State, which I think if you leave positional value out of it, yes, Chase Young is the best player in this class, but positional value does push Joe Burrow over the top for Chase Young. And then number 2, he has Joe Burrow. Number 3, which I really like, Tua Tagovailoa at number 3. Some people have him lower, weighing too much maybe into the injury. 4, Jeffrey Okudah, right up there with where we have him. And 5, Isaiah Simmons. I can get on board with Isaiah Simmons being the 5th best player in this class.
He's 7th for us.
7th for us, yeah. Derek Brown at 6, Jerry Jeudy ahead of CeeDee Lamb at 7, but CeeDee Lamb right there at 8. Yeah. And I think we've said it time and time again. It depends who'd you watch last, because who you watch last is probably who's going to be first.
I was going to say, those guys will never not be ranked right next to each other on our draft board. There's not. No one's going to come between them.
Exactly. It's just hand in hand right there. So Jerry Jeudy at 7, CeeDee Lamb at 8, and then he has Andrew Thomas at 9. His OT1, which with PFF is very similar to where we have Andrew Thomas, and that 10. Justin Herbert.
They got different.
Yeah, that's a little different. Justin Herbert at 10, but here I will say this: if you were going to factor in positional value,
I was going to say, so that's the thing here. He doesn't factor it in at the top when he has Chase Young over Joe Burrow, because no sane person is going to say, hey, Joe Burrow, like if you needed both those positions, no sane person is going to draft Chase Young over Joe Burrow, right? At the moment.
Which is exactly the situation the Bengals are in. They need both positions, but you'd be foolish, absolutely foolish, to take Chase Young over Joe Burrow number 1.
But then at the same time, Justin Herbert is not a better prospect for the quarterback position than Javon Kinlaw is for the defensive tackle position. Who's number 11 on his board there. Like, that's just objectively, anyone would tell you that if your position value didn't matter here, Javon Kinlaw has, top 3 sort of defensive tackle in the NFL type of potential.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert,
not in the same tier.
I mean, just like if he becomes a quality starter, that's very much up in the air. That'd be his best case scenario, is just to be a starter.
I think that's where we probably most disagree with Mel Kiper Jr.'s top 10. But what I was most impressed with was how high he had Tua Tagovailoa, and also where he sits currently with Isaiah Simmons, Jerry Jeudy, and CeeDee Lamb, and Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas as his offensive tackle 1, which is great for Mel Kiper Jr. Let's move on to the next kind of the good in Mel Kiper's ranks. Netani Muti, our guy.
We're saying it's great for Mel Kiper Jr. as if this is the OG. He's been doing it for 40 years, and we've been doing this for 6. But yes, it is great for Mel Kiper Jr.
Yeah, I mean, it is great for Mel Kiper. But with Netani Muti is his OG2.
Yes.
His second best offensive guard in his class. And
people are getting it.
They're finally getting it. I mean, he's your OG1 on PFF's board. But I thought PFF was going to be the only guy on Netani Muti. I saw Bucky Brooks had him in his top 5 interior
top 3
lineman.
for interior offensive lineman, yeah.
You have Mel Kiper with him, OG2. People see Netani Muti.
Hop on board before it's too late. Before you look silly when he goes 15th overall. It's not going to happen. It's not going to go 15th.
For those who haven't listened to PFF's podcast for the past 2 weeks plus, where we talk about Netani Muti probably every podcast, give me the breakdown of where you are with Muti.
He's a Hawaiian god. He walked out of a volcano and it was already a full-grown man. His highlight reel tape, if you haven't watched it, I say this every time I bring it up, go to YouTube, search Netani Muti highlights. It's absurd. It looks like Quentin Nelson coming out, and this is him as a freshman back at Fresno State. Absurdly powerful, and the thing is, he's very powerful, but is also light on his feet, athletic, has gotten the job done very well in pass protection over the course of his career, graded out exceptionally well. Yes, he tore his Achilles in 2018. Yes, he only played 3 games this past year with a shoulder injury. Injury red flags are huge, but it's 2 separate injuries. Obviously not recurring something that's going on. You get a clean bill of health by draft time. He's IOL 1 for us.
Absolutely. I mean, with Netani Muti, again, it's Bucky Brooks is on the train, Mel Kiper on the train. I think Netani Muti is a guy that see past the injuries, look at this physical freak with great production when healthy. Because if you look at his grades, he's graded very, very well at offensive guard and at tackle for Fresno State. I think I'm really impressed with him as a prospect. The only red flag, really, the biggest red flag is injuries. If you can overcome that, I mean, this is one of the better players in this draft. I mean, he's top 32 on PFF's big board. Moving forward here, James Lynch, the Baylor player at DT5.
Yes. I like this one. There's a couple here. This one. So James Lynch at DT5 and KJ Hamler at wide receiver 6, because they're takes. They're kind of hot-ish takes. But I just kind of like both of them. James Lynch was a defensive end at Baylor, but he played defensive end at 300 pounds.
Yeah, he's huge.
Now, he was actually better in terms of grading at defensive end than he was on the interior. So 350 snaps, rushing the passer on the edge. 82.6 pass rushing grade there, 143 when they kicked him inside, only 64.8 passing rushing grade from the inside. So from that perspective, yes, it doesn't look great for him projecting to DT at the next level, but I still like the traits. I still think that he had 70 pressures this past season for Baylor. I think that led all the edge defenders in the country. And he's, like I said, not an edge defender, but didn't come off the field for Baylor. Rushed the pass over 500 times this past year. So the motor is there. The production to some degree is there. So I like the take of him as DT5. And I like the take as KJ Hamler as wide receiver 6 because freakish athleticism, that freakish sort of separation ability just plays in the NFL today. That's the way the NFL game is going. I think he's a weapon that you can take very much advantage of.
I know another thing.
I like having him up there better than guys like Justin Jefferson, guys like who aren't at that level.
Which we'll get to in Todd McShay's.
Yeah.
We'll get to in Todd McShay's, I think, top 25 or top 32 overall players. Another thing you like with Mel Kiper, the good here, he ranks long snappers. Mel Kiper Jr., he ranks long snappers.
He ranks long snappers. He ranks 6 long snappers. So now he has 10 of every single other position. Like, he just goes through his top 10 rankings at every other position and then just puts 6 long snappers.
Who's number 1?
Blake Ferguson from LSU.
Oh, yeah. Who's at the Senior Bowl. Who's number 2?
Steve Wordle from Iowa State.
Oh, actually, I've seen his tape.
Remember Steve Wordle's tape, yeah.
Very, very good, actually. But I feel like I still can't really have a good decision on him until I see the All-22. Like, I feel like you get the All-22 end zone angle of that snap and just watch all of them back to back.
Long snapping they should time it at the combine. Why don't they?
Yeah, that's actually a good take.
Like the 40-yard snap. Mm-hmm. Some guy.
And also, I'd say like distance. I would love to see how far can you long snap.
Yeah.
Where it's like you start at the 10 and see if you can go 30 yards, 40 yards, because then you want torque.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's timing as well. But I think torque would be a very nice piece to it.
I did love hearing that. So I guess apparently actual accuracy is not nearly as important on snaps as is getting the laces.
No, I've heard that too. Pat McAfee is saying that,
which is very interesting to me.
Apparently the long snapper's job is
we don't scout long.
Yeah,
long
we
snappers.
don't. But the long snapper's job, according to Pat McAfee, I would encourage listening to the original because I'm just paraphrasing here. But he was saying that it's more than just like getting it right where the holder's hands are, but actually getting it to where when it hits the holder's hands, he can just put it down without much pivot for where laces are already out. That is absurd. You're like snapping it knowing how many revolutions you're going to have on the ball by the time it hits his hands to a point where he doesn't need to make a major adjustment to get the laces out.
It's almost like bowling at that point. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, a lot of it is. I mean, maybe bowling should be at the combine. We're talking about these new drills here. I don't know. That's going to do it for the good for Mel Kiper Jr. We're going to move to the bad. Again, the bad, the ugly, both aggressive terms. Just trying to structure this for your entertainment value. But this is some of the stuff that we kind of disagreed with, starting with Ben Bredesen, offensive guard 1. And you haven't been on the Bredesen hype train for a while. Like you've always kind of been. He's a blue blood program, and you've always said like, don't scout the helmet, scout the player. When you do scout the player, what do you see?
4-year starter, Michigan, obviously love. I just think he's like super high cut for a guard. He gets out leveraged a lot at the point of attack. Never had good run blocking grades in his career. It was solid this past year in pass protection, but a lot of it was that an offensive line, a lot of play action. They just don't have a lot of like true pass sets on his tape, and had a very good interior guys next to him in Cesar Ruiz and Michael Onwenu there for Michigan. So he's not terrible, but 66.3 run blocking grade this past year. That was his best since his freshman year. He's just not necessarily. I think he's just fine. Like you draft him in the 4th round, and maybe you get an average guard someday. That's not OG1 though to me.
Not what you'd like to see. And looking at PFF's latest position rankings on the site, which you can go to on PFF.com, Bredesen didn't make the top 10 for interior offensive line. He's not in that top 10 for interior offensive line, while on the other hand, Mel Kiper does have him as the top guard in this class, according to these latest rankings here. Moving forward on more of the bad, I put this one in here. Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen both inside his top 25. Kenneth Murray coming at number 19 as the best linebacker in this class. Or no, after Isaiah Simmons, and then number 25, Patrick Queen. I just think that is too high for both of the off-ball linebackers. I don't necessarily want to disagree with Murray over Queen, Queen over Murray, but I think they are not top 25 players in this class, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're the traits guys, and they're the classic traits linebackers over what we've seen from them so far in the field. They'll be better in the NFL than they have been in college, and that's. I mean, I'm not going to argue too hard. That's why it's not in the ugly category here for us. It's in just the bad. But it's like if you have the 19th overall pick, and one of those guys staring in the eye, there's got to be better players there on the board.
Yeah, and at better positional value. Exactly. I'm tired of big boards that do not factor in positional value. We're going to get into that when we get into the ugly with both Kiper and McShay. Yeah. But like off-ball linebacker, when you have this cornerback class staring you in the face, like the Cameron Dantzler, Bryce Hall, Jeff Gladney, like I'm sitting at 19 and 25 in this draft. I'm not thinking about off-ball linebacker, knowing how Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen, though, have impressed on tape. With from a traits perspective, I think the production's still lacking for me to see them as top 25 players.
I agree.
All right, moving forward. No Curtis Weaver. Curtis Weaver, we just had him on the podcast recently. Curtis Weaver, right now, top 20 on PFF's latest big board. Up there, I think edge 3 in the latest position rankings for PFF. Love his production at Boise State. He's not a traits guy, though. He's not on Todd McShay's top 32. He's not on Mel Kiper's top 25 because he's not a traits guy. And I think that's the biggest reason why people do not like his build. Bottom line, people do not like his build. He made the top 5 of Bucky Brooks' latest edge rankings, and he mentioned it. Does not have the build, but love his production. And I think he's working. He's in Club Sexy with Exos in Frisco, Texas. What's funny on the interview, and you'll hear it if you listen to yesterday's podcast, he's like, "Oh, I'm from I'm based working out in Frisco." I was like, "Oh, my hometown. I'm from the Bay Area." He's like, "Frisco, Texas." I was like, "Actually, no. I've never been there. Sorry." But yeah, again, with Curtis Weaver, he has the bad build.
Well, you're not supposed to call it Frisco if it's San Francisco.
Yeah, well, San Fran is what I usually refer to. But anyway, who gives a shit about that? No, Curtis Weaver, not on Kiper's big board. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the take is he's the 16th overall player on our board. The take is that we disagree. And him being behind guys like, well, we'll get into it later, but just guys like Terrell Lewis on the edge. I don't.
That's absurd. Like, again, Terrell Lewis has the traits.
Matos, like these guys can't hold candle to his production.
I mean, Terrell Lewis has the traits. The guy was built in the lab to play this position, but again, the production not there, and that is a big reason why we kind of disagree on the alignment there. You want to take over this one? I know you had some disagreements here.
Antoine Winfield at safety 10 for him, and Terrell Burgess at safety 9, behind the likes of Davion Taylor from Colorado, who was straight up a linebacker.
Yeah, he's not even a safety. He's huge. Davion Taylor's like big.
Yeah, who's a linebacker, and then Josh Metellus from Michigan, who just he's slow. Like
Davion Taylor's the guy who didn't play high school football, right? Like who had that whole situation and like barely learning linebacker safety. That's wild.
Exactly. And then Metellus is like straight up got owned in the one-on-ones. So some guys came, so they had the safeties go one-on-one against the wide receivers at the Senior Bowl. Some guys looked like they had the ability to do that. Some guys just looked like they were safeties trying to cover real wide receivers one-on-one. Metellus is this guy who looked like a straight up safety trying to cover a wide receiver one-on-one. Had no business doing that whatsoever. But he has him ahead of Winfield and Burgess. So that one's I'm just going to disagree.
When they did do those drills at the Senior Bowl, someone who surprised me that played safety was Alohi Gilman.
Yeah.
He actually played very well.
Yeah.
Played press
he's
corner.
Not athletic, but the dude got in people's
He was physical,
grills.
Very physical. And I think it was some of the receivers were not ready for Alohi Gilman in those drills. All right, let's move to the ugly. Okay, the most disagreed with on Mel Kiper's here. I think it's easy to say the positional designations. You go through his top 5 positional rankings. It's like he's got linebackers with edge defenders. He's got linebackers with safeties. It's all over the board here.
It's 2020. What the hell are we doing ranking Isaiah Simmons in the same vein, in the same position as Curtis Weaver? He has him listed as both in his outside linebacker rankings.
Same with Kayvon Chason. I think Kayvon
Chason, those two. And then also, so who else is in there? Willie Gay Jr., who is a straight up 235-pound off-ball linebacker, never rushed the pass, barely rushed the pass in his life at Mississippi State. He ranks all those guys at outside linebacker. They are Simmons played safety at Clemson. Curtis Weaver dropped into coverage 50 times in his career. Those guys are not doing the same thing. They will not be doing the same thing. It's 2020. Get with the program. And so you can't even tell. And then he ranks Marlon Davidson with the defensive ends. I mean, I guess, yes, he
did play defense.
But now he's 297 pounds. But you have James Lynch, who played defensive end with defense tackles.
What I learned most from that is Mel Kiper Jr. needs a PFF subscription.
Yeah.
Specifically one.
Find out where these guys play.
Exactly. Let's get some positional snap counts. We'll help you out, brother. It's all in the draft guide. By the way, all Edge and Elite subscribers can get access to PFF's latest draft guide. We have a new version coming out on February 24th as well. That's going to have, 250 players?
250.
With I think it's 755 pages. This thing's a monster. I heard it's bigger than the Bible. I don't know. That's just the page count we're getting to.
Definitely more interesting in my opinion, but that's unbiased here. But all right. And then the last positional designation that I found hilarious was he just ranks kickers and punters together. He has kickers and punters together, 5 punters, then a kicker, where it's if this is your draft board and you're we need a specialist, but we really need a kicker, But the punter's higher on our board.
I'm lost in the sauce right now.
Do we draft the punter?
It's absurd. This is absurd. Wait, who's next on our specialist rankings?
Yeah. You got to take
we needed a punter, actually.
Hey,
well.
Next man up.
Just stick to your board.
Yeah.
Stick to your board. Moving forward, the ugly, and I mentioned this a little bit, hinted at this, but DeAndre Swift and J.K. Dobbins at number 18 and number 20, respectively. I don't care how you see this running back class. If DeAndre Swift and J.K. Dobbins are your 1 and 2 at that position, okay. But to have either of those players in the top 20, knowing what we know now about the running back position, seeing what we've seen with David Johnson, Todd Gurley, now even Ezekiel Elliott, what's going to happen to Derrick Henry, what happened to Melvin Gordon, why, in your right mind, would you ever draft a running back that high or value one that high compared to, again, go to cornerback, go to receiver, this receiving class? It's absurd to me.
Dude, and it's because also, like, running back is the one position where you can always pat yourself on the back for as a GM.
Because they're all good.
Because when you draft one in the first round, you're going to give them 250 carries. And if you get 250 carries, you're going to get 1,000 yards. And once you hit 1,000 yards as a running back, you're a good running back.
There are some that say that the Leonard Fournette the Leonard Fournette was still a good pick because he's been fed the football and fed a lot of other things too, if we want to get to the weight discussion. But like Leonard Fournette was not a good selection at number 4. You did not recoup your value. It's objectively not a good choice. And with these two guys, as talented as they are, and we talked about DeAndre Swift on the last podcast, we've talked about J.K. Dobbins at length, still not top 20 players, largely because they do not play a position that you're going to get the value back when you do draft them that highly.
It's not a skilled position. There's no skills to learn.
This is just my favorite take on running backs by you, by the way. Go ahead.
And when there's not skills to learn, you can't separate there's fewer things to separate from the pack from. So like it
becomes more athleticism, it becomes more track speed.
It just becomes and then like when you look at like track meets, the difference between the top guys is like nothing.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what it basically is. The difference between all these top guys is like nothing. There's so few guys that really separate because there's no skills to learn to make you better at the position.
Compared to other positions, there's definitely skills to learn. I think you're being somewhat hyperbolic, but I think.
But I mean, there really is like you hit the ground as a rookie in the NFL at your peak, basically.
Yes, no.
You're not like,
and that's
you can improve
100%.
in pass protection. You can maybe improve in like routes, hands, whatever. But as a pure runner with the ball in your hand, you're not like, you don't get more elusive.
Yep.
You just are. You are what you are.
All right, last one here from Mel Kiper, and we apologize in advance. We did not mean to get this aggressive here, but Cole Kmet at number 22.
Man.
This tight end class is bad. It's the worst. It's the worst position group in the 2020 NFL draft. To have any of them in your top 32 is absurd, and let alone Cole Kmet.
I have 2 takes on this. One, about Kmet itself is crazy at number 22. There's not like a single thing. He doesn't have a trump card. He's not athletically like anything special. He is probably a worse receiver than TJ Hawkinson was, worse receiving sort of traits in terms of athleticism, hands. It just was very much just ran the seams, never beat one-on-one coverage at Notre Dame. Like I said, I was watching him at Notre Dame this past year, big Notre Dame fan. At no point was I ever like, Cole Kmet's a dude, feed Cole Kmet.
The difference maker.
Exactly. At no point. But so him at 22, crazy to me. This whole tight end class is kind of just like, meh. But then the other take is that I think tight end, you're going to see these guys pumped up draft boards and way overdrafted this year because in the Super Bowl, Travis Kelce against George Kittle.
Yep.
Everyone's like, give me a Travis Kelce, George Kittle.
There's not a Travis Kelce
exactly.
or George Kittle in this class. I don't know if there will be for a while now.
Yeah.
They're rare athletes, rare size profiles.
Everyone's going to try to be featuring their tight end position to try to get those guys, but those guys are freaks. Those guys are exceptional after the catch.
Mike, I'm not ready for that analysis on draft day. I'm not. I'm not ready for day one, day two. When they pick a tight end, it's like they're following the mold. It's a copycat league. Yep. This is the next Travis Kelce. Like, I'm not ready for it.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.